Hello, guys. Welcome back to another 2024 presidential election prediction. Today, I have Peter Griffin, the protagonist of Family Guy, and Brian Griffin, his dog, versus Stan Smith, the protagonist of American Dad, and incumbent United States Senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. Now, to start with the safe states, all of this is going to go to Stan Smith. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky. And for Peter and Brian, the usual very liberal states. And that includes all of New England. I think that the New England populace will rally behind Peter and Brian. I don't think there's ever been a major presidential nominee from Rhode Island, so that'll be a first. I mean, sure, you could argue that, New England didn't get behind Mitt Romney, though New England typically leans far more to the left anyway. So those are the safe states, and New York, of course. And now, something I will find interesting is more of a traditional conservative, such as Stan Smith, one who is socially conservative in addition to being fiscally conservative, will do well in a state like Texas, which will be won by a likely margin, Missouri and Indiana, which will be safe, Iowa, which will be won by a lean margin, Ohio, I think, by the same lean margin. Georgia and Arizona, he will flip by lean margins. Alaska hovering around its usual margin. West Virginia, I forgot to add a safe. And most of Nebraska. And that includes the 2nd District. Which he will win by a lean margin. South Carolina will be safe. Sure, you could argue that Stan Smith won't appeal much to the traditional Trump voters. James Lankford, I believe, is a defender and supporter of Trump, so that'll help on that front. Whereas Peter Griffin's more of a classic New England liberal. And while that may hurt him in some of these areas, I believe that this will help him in the Rust Belt, which will be won by lean margins each, except for Minnesota, which is likely. Now, likely in Colorado, likely in New Mexico. Remember, George W. Bush carried these states as recently as 2004, so they're not out of reach for a traditional conservative. I think Virginia will be surprisingly competitive. I think Peter and Brian will win here by a tilt margin. This is Stan Smith's home state. He's connected to the area, certainly. And as I said, traditional social conservatism. I also believe that Stan will win Florida just because it's been trending a little more to the right recently. President Trump carried it both times by solid margins, especially the second time, I believe. North Carolina, once again, suburbs, traditional values, that'll be lean. Nevada, I believe, will be tilt. And so this is a pretty close election we have here. Peter and Brian do win, as Democrats have done more favorably in recent election cycles, especially in the popular vote, which they haven't lost since 2004. But even with carrying some of these traditional Republican states that have defected to the Democrats, Stan and James Lankford do fall short of the presidency. Brian Griffin, I think, will be more of a Dick Cheney-esque vice president in that he acts as a little more of an advisor to the president, Peter Griffin being incompetent as always. So I think there's even a possibility that Stan Smith carries the popular vote here, but not the Electoral College. But regardless, Peter and Brian become president and vice president, and Stan and James Langford do not. And peace out.